COVID-19 exposed the biggest posers for unfettered capitalism. It exposed the inhumanity that accompanies capitalism as practiced in the United States. Not only has it caused massive debts indirectly, but it is in the process of destroying the personal economies of middle class and poor America. Is this the end of capitalism as we know it? I want you to listen to this piece by Stephanie Ruhle, and we'll take it on the other side.
Go higher up the economic food chain, and you actually have healthcare workers who are getting their pay cut, who are working in hospital systems owned by private equity giants like KKR. You've got healthcare professionals who are suffering. Yet those private equity giants who are supposed to be in a position where they take all sorts of risk, and when you take big risk, you could get lots of upside, but you risk facing great downside. And right now, the government is stepping in and curbing that downside. We're having capitalism on the way up and self-imposed socialism on the way down.
You're absolutely right, Stephanie. It's rugged individualism and capitalism and the Hunger Games on the way up. And then on the way down, it's a lot of call signs by CEOs that we're in this together and sort of a hallmark channel like socialism. We need to decide if we're capitalists, meaning that if you take incredible risks, there's incredible upside. But if you use 96% of your free cash flow to buy back stock, thereby inflating your compensation and the compensation of the CEO and the directors, and you don't have any cash when a crisis hits, should you be in fact be allowed to fail? And what private equity and CEOs are trying to convince us of right now is they're conflating equity destruction with job destruction. And the reality is, and I know this personally, when your company declares Chapter 11, a lot of times there isn't job loss, there's just a wipeout of equity. So all of a sudden we're in this together. We need to decide if we're capitalists, meaning that equity gets wiped out on the way down, or if we're socialists. But if we're going to be socialists, and let's be honest, socialism, a lot of people say that's a better alternative. 5 of the 7 happiest nations in the world have socialism. You want your universal pre-K, you want your universal health, but let's not have capitalism on the way up. And then when we hit a crisis, we have the worst type of socialism, we have cronyism. And that is the people with the most representation in Washington, the people with the most economic power, decide all of a sudden that we're in this together. And as soon as the markets start going back up, you're going to hear talks about capitalism and rugged individualism.
Then quickly before we go, why is the government listening to them? We are seeing CEOs of gig economy companies urging the government to provide those Uber and Lyft drivers healthcare and government support. Yet those companies never paid into the system and made any of those people employees, so they never paid a payroll tax. How could they ask this of the government?
That's the correct question. Amazon has over 100 full-time lobbyists in D.C., not lobbying for higher minimum wage, but lobbying for absence from regulation. And by the way, let's talk about the companies with the most essential workers who pay them anywhere between $12 and $15 an hour. It's Amazon and Walmart. And it's no accident, Stephanie, that today, those stocks hit an all-time high. You're obviously referring to Uber. Uber's now worth more than the entire U.S. auto industry. The U.S. auto industry pays people an average of $27 an hour, guaranteed their health care benefits. They're still making money. Uber right now has people putting themselves in harm's way. They get clocked out when they don't make any money. Somewhere between a quarter and a third of them make below minimum wage. But we've decided those are the new innovators. We have a decision to make. Do we want to have a ride-hailing economy where people are vulnerable, or do we want to have an old economy like Gestalt or approach where we say there's a dignity in work, and quite frankly, shareholders aren't going to reap as much of the pie, but workers, the middle class, the people who have made this country great, the people bringing us our groceries are going to do better. There's going to be more dignity in work. This requires structural, fundamental change.
Structural, fundamental change. Capitalism as we practice it, capitalism in general, it has no humanity, no heart. Remember what I tell this show after show. It believes in the tenet of whatever the market will bear. And what will the market bear? Your total income plus the total amount of credit you have access to. And that's it. Think about this. The coronavirus is here. The stockpiles that we should have of equipment for a pandemic, which we understand given the level of travel that occurs in this world, would actually explode, was not there. And the reason why is equipment staying in storage. Equipment that's just sitting down there makes no money. So therefore, capitalism does not work well in the medical field, where there may be times that a lot of things that you do is rather inefficient for the times when you do need it. Ironically speaking, the loss that we are going to have in economic activity likely is going to be much larger than having just stocked away all these things into storage. But of course, there are going to be some winners. Think about this. In as much as the United States had already commissioned the creation of these ventilators that cost about $2,500 a piece, New York is paying anywhere between $25,000 and $50,000 because since they're bidding against their federal government and other states, the capitalist structure says we will give the highest bidder. And are you willing to pay more? Are you willing to pay more? Are you willing to pay more? Until the price goes up, whatever the market will bear. And if you need it, you'll pay whatever. If the government had it in storage, or if the government also had regulations that said this will not cost more than XYZ. Why? Not price controls on everything, but if you want to have a private sector somehow involved in something that's public, then the least you should have is very tight controls. The truth of the matter is that you should not have the private sector involved in healthcare, because healthcare for profit means healthcare denied, or healthcare for the rich. No two ways about it. Now, the fact that we have people that they don't have the safety equipment, they don't have all these things, they're causing more debts. That is what this type of economic system brings. These guys are not doing anything wrong. When they go to Donald Trump and make a deal, when they hold back masks, when they rip off masks from each other for profit, that is by definition the system. And it works well if you're selling gasoline, if it works well if you're selling slippers, it works well if you're selling donuts. But for things that we need as a society, you cannot have an economic system that by design has no soul. Its sole purpose to make a profit for the shareholder, and the amount of profit it makes for the shareholder is based on whatever the market will bear. Now, when it comes to socialism versus capitalism, it is funny because, as explained perfectly in that piece, what these guys are looking for is socialism on the way down. In other words, oh, here comes the virus. It's so bad. The virus is so bad. Look at what it's doing to us. Which is true. The virus is bad and it's doing a whole lot of bad things. But here is the real issue. You are taking risks. That is what you do by design. A system rewards you for taking risks. But when the risks come, you want to offload it to people. When you decide to raise your prices, you don't give the people a break. When Donald Trump wanted to raise the prices of gasoline, the prices of petroleum to save a few petroleum jobs, as opposed to saving the money of millions of Americans, he chose to save the jobs of a few people in the petroleum industry. But actually, he was really saving the petroleum company that really cannot make money at the current price of a barrel of oil. That's not capitalism. That is socialism for corporations. I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel, and please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.